in the past has dealt with the taxes that, the apportionments that have been received, and how transparency is put in place or not. So two very, very different conversations. As far as the apportionments that are turned into the county, that process is just fine. How the RCD has handled finances in the past, that's a completely different kettle of fish.
Yeah, I appreciate, I think it's important that we have an open discussion about this, because that's the only way we can feather out what it is. Right now, it's been, somebody said this or somebody said that, and I've been kind of curious ever since his letter came back out and his conversation with me when he called me, kind of reopened. I thought Mr. Evans had tried to pursue and follow to find out what was happening, and I never heard any more after that until just recently with Mr. Trask's concerns that he brought to the board a couple of weeks ago.
Richard, you have something?
I just had a couple of comments. One that they have done the last 2 years audits, but I don't think it's within the scope of those audits to evaluate their cash handling practices or their bank accounts, because otherwise they would have noticed this activity going on. It's alarming that the bank doesn't notice when somebody comes in with a check to deposit. Normally they require, and I've opened a few bank accounts for the county.
Oh, yeah.
They require a resolution identifying
They even take your driver's license.
who's
and
authorized
make you, like,
and so
do your
forth.
thumbprint.
But sometimes on the back of the signature card is a draft resolution that if somebody just wants to sign it, the bank will probably take it. So that may explain how that happened. Doesn't make it right. And I don't think having an audit should give a very high level of comfort in terms of cash management and how funds are being
That's good to know.
appropriated, because I don't even think they looked at it. Karen might disagree.
Jesse, is your budget process improving? Because that's where it seems to me a lot of the issues are.
The budget process is absent. There really isn't a budget process in what you typically understand as a budget, and part of that has to do with how the current accounting entity that RCD uses documents grants and potential grants.
I do think now we're getting outside of the
Oh,
water
okay.
master
Okay.
assessment
Okay.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could, I think we could pretty much wrap it up. I think we wanted to know if the dates were being met and that, so,
Yep.
yeah. Okay. Thanks, Jesse, appreciate it. Anybody else to comment on this? This was a discussion item, and I think we've had some good discussion, and thanks, Karen, for, sorry you had to hang around the whole thing.
No problem.
Okay, let's quickly take up H2, to be quick. It's an ordinance, rescinding ordinance number 567 and canceling the
Well,
development.
this was introduced last
Yes.
meeting, and I would move, Mr. Chairman, that we adopt by title only ordinance number 2014-001, rescinding the previous ordinance 567 and canceling the development agreement between the County of Lassen and Dyer Mountain Associates LLC and its successor interest.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Before we take a vote, is there anybody from the public that would like to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, it is a
It's
poll
an
vote.
ordinance.
Okay, Madam Clerk, it's a poll vote.
Supervisor Chapman?
Aye.
Supervisor Elmore?
Aye.
Supervisor Hammond?
Aye.
Supervisor Watson?
Aye. Thank you. Let's do the item H3, the juvenile hall progress report. Apologize for the long time we had this.
That's okay. I've just been trying to make it through. I don't feel well today, that's the only thing. Jen Branning with the probation department. I just wanted to make sure that, as Mr. Chapman requested previously, that I keep you guys informed on the progress that we're making with the juvenile hall. in locating some of the revenues. So we have made some progress in trying to figure out where we're gonna go short-term and long-term. Being able to look at the school nutrition program for the breakfast, lunch, and snack. We have to make sure that our menus meet the nutrition requirements. We have to make sure that the grant will accept the jail's menus and their letter for the dietitian that's been provided with that. We are trying to get some meetings set up with environmental alternatives to discuss the lease and where we're gonna be able to get the most money and still make it effective for them so that they can continue to occupy the space. Been working with Richard to try to look at what's the best way to set up the meetings with MODOC and Plumas counties so that the chair of their board of supervisors and ours and CAOs and chiefs can kind of sit down together, be able to work that out so that when it does get handed back to the other boards, there's somebody there that can explain it and kind of work on that prior to, so that we don't wind up with this big waiting period in between.
On that, Mr. Chairman, at the NARTEC meeting last week in Chico, several of the counties, of course, were there, and I had an opportunity actually to have a conversation with the supervisor from Plumas County as well as one of the supervisors from Sierra County, and Modoc County as well was there, Jim Wells. And I proposed to them at that point, because we have a number of issues, but one of them being juvenile hall and that part of it, of having one of our joint, we haven't done it for a few years, but what they call the quad county or tri-county meeting, depending upon how many would be involved. And I suggested to them that April the 29th, which is the 5th Tuesday in April, which happens 2 or 3 times a year, and that's usually when these joint kind of meetings would be targeted for, would be available. So they were made aware of that. They seemed interested because they had other issues too that would be of interest for the counties to collaborate besides, probation or juvenile hall. So they were going to go back to their boards with that, information. So the ball should be rolling. I indicated that Mr. Egan would probably be getting in touch with their clerk or administrator. Both Sierra and Plumas do not have CAOs. They have basically their clerks of the board or the chairman, and but Modoc County, I believe, does have them. So anyway, so we've already kind of had some discussion at that level. Or whatever you put down to that.
I sent a letter out yesterday inviting them to the meeting on the 29th.
On the 29th, and I told them, we rotated around. I believe the last one that we actually had about 3 or 4 years ago, and there hasn't been much activity in recent years, was actually held over in Quincy and Plumas County, and I believe before that we were in Loyalton, so I think Lassen would be.
I offered to host it
Yeah.
here, so.
And that'd be good. Maybe while we have them here as part of the meeting, is we take them on a tour and let's go over and have them go see what the juvenile hall looks like so that we can talk about what those needs are and the importance of it. So that would be something worth considering. Eric?
Yeah, a question all one, just real quick, Jennifer, just for my own information. It says $110 for juvenile in custody and $85 per day for a court-ordered commitment. What's the difference between custody and a court-ordered commitment?
A court-ordered commitment is where the judge has ordered that that minor will serve X amount of days in juvenile hall. So if the judge orders them to serve 30 days as a sanction for a poor choice, then that's a commitment. So whereas when we just detain someone, we're holding them there until we can figure out, are they safe for the public? Is it okay to release them? Is it for their own protection? What do we need to do? Where is the direction of this case going to go? Do they need to be removed from their home or not? So there is kind of a difference in between those 2 court cases. And it's just a different track with court cases.
Okay. How come the price difference? We take more staffing for the custody?
It doesn't take as much staff for the, it does take some staff for the custody and for the detention part of it, because you're not sure exactly how long they're gonna be there, what kind of programs, that you're gonna be able to include them in for just a short period of time, or if they're gonna be there long-term. So some of our long-term programs, we get kids in that are gonna be there, that we're not sure how long they're gonna be there. We try to implement as much as we can while they're there, because we only anticipate maybe a 2-day to a 5-day stay with some of those kids that come in on detentions. But the kids that are there for commitments, we know that they're gonna be there long-term, and to have to pay the $110 per day for that long-term commitment is generally a drain on somebody else's budget. And other counties typically charge anywhere from $60 to $75 for their commitments.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I wanna, say a big thank you for the efforts, and I think, this is another result that's come out of this June budget, and these are the things, like earlier today with the groundwater deal, the $149,000, Galen and Maury's staff brought into the department.
Right.
There's monies we wouldn't have, when we're crunching the budget. It always comes down to closing the gap, like after the 5th day, and it's 5 o'clock, and these are monies that are gonna make the gap smaller. I mean, there's really no other better way to explain it. I mean, they really are. It's even, and it's amazing to think, like you say, the state has allocated, almost $28 million for the juvenile camp and stuff, and there's money out there. I mean, it appears, I know it's work to find it, but when you hit a home, not even a home run, a double or a single, or, I mean, it's monies, and it helps big time to, in our budget.
It does help.
Yeah.
There is different things that we can qualify for, and with that camp funding, one of the things that I would really like to be able to look at is each probation department that runs a camp, you only get a portion of that money, and it's not a guaranteed set of money, it's based on how many youth you have in the beds. So I wanna be able to see what's gonna be more effective and efficient for the county in doing a camp, or working with Mel and some of her folks and everybody to try to get a regional treatment facility. Which one's gonna be more beneficial for the county, for the kids, and for everyone. So we're gonna be sometime in the future setting up some meetings to try to discuss some of that, and that'll of course be in some of the future reports
And,
as to what we're looking at as far as direction.
But, I mean,
For
I'm
those.
hoping we could there's some things in there that are being worked on, and we could come back in March with a progress report and see how, because what's really important, like you say here, current status, in December, MODOC and Plumas contributed $7,000 basically, or $84,000 if you annualize that out. And as we know, I mean, last night, it's $1 million hit to us, so the 84,000 is peanuts. And we need to get a proper cost share tri-county agreement, and we need to have some serious discussions about that. But I thank you for starting it. We need to keep it going, and I'm sure we can come up with something that works for all 3 counties. Supervisor Chapman?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I could, and the very last page of your packet had a chart with December 13th at the top, so I assume this is like, or December 13, probably is December 2013 is probably what it's referring
It
to.
is.
And it's kind of a breakdown on bookings and days and custodies and costs. And the problem I have when I really look at the way we project costs, and I mean to project revenues based on what costs are, is that we narrowly define cost to be maybe whatever's the cost of the meal, or the cost of, whatever it is. You got medical expenses kind of broken out as a cost item there. But I don't see those costs. I mean, the very first line, you got 5 days, and this is from booking county was Lassen, and it's from date 12/1/2013 to 12/5/2013. You have 5 days, and you have lodging is $75, no medical expense, so total monthly cost is $75. Now, I don't know if that's, when you look at this other, when you talk about here, where you have your $110 if it's not committed by the courts, but $85 if it's committed, if it's a court order commitment. But
That's what we
I take a
charge.
look, I take a look at this and I say, okay, well, the only thing I can make sense of that number is that you divide 5 into 75, which is like $15. And so you're getting, instead of 5 times 75 and having a monthly cost out there being, a bigger amount, is, I mean, you're only collecting about, on these booking things, about $10,000 as it relates to having these wards in place. So this isn't the true cost of having them there. It's kind of like when you run a business and you maybe, you know, I buy paper by the reams, and somebody comes in and they want to buy 5 sheets of paper. You know, and so I could figure out what the per sheet of paper cost is based on what I paid for the ream and how much I give them. But you also have to take in consideration the rest of what it is that you're doing to open your doors. You've got to have staffing costs, you've got utilities, you've got, you know, infrastructure costs, you've got, you know, cost of equipment and things like that, and there's got to be a factor. So it's not just the 5 sheets of paper they walk out the door with it, you know, half a cent a piece or something. It's all those other costs have to be factored in there. When you look at what our revenues are and how we project our revenues to what our real costs are, there's a total disconnect is how I see it. And this chart here, when I look at it, I'm going like, well, I'm not sure what it's trying to tell me, but what I'm seeing based on looking at it doesn't add up.
Well, it's, the reason for the chart is to try to show you guys how many kids were booked into juvenile hall,
16
how many
from
days
Lassen.
there were stayed, how many were from Lassen, how many were from Modoc and Plumas. The Modoc and Plumas are the ones that get charged the $110 per day, or the $85 today, which is why that was under the Plumas and Modoc contracts. All of the Lassen County kids only get charged $15 per day. If the parents go down to the Office of Recovery and Reimbursement and they fill out the waiver forms, that fee gets waived down to zero anyways. So that's why
Well,
when
that's
I
where-
say that
that's-
there's the
that's
fines
where-
and the fees,
Yeah, that's where part of your
that
problem
we have
is.
to do the time studies to be able to, and those time studies are rather extensive with exactly what has to go into those to be able to determine what the fines and fees are. And that may be something that should be revisited probably, I would say, every 3 years, you know, so that we can always keep current
So
with
the
rising
Lassen kids only get
costs.
charged $15 a day, and because of, they go to the recovery,
The parents
revenue
go.
recovery office, and they wind up getting that waived down to zero.
Correct.
But I gotta tell you, that has gotta be fixed. That does not work.
That's what I'm looking into.
Is there a way?
No wonder we're losing our shirt.
Well, the waiver of the fee is determined by a calculation that's spelled out in the code. Not much we can do about that.
Well, I think, you know, it's spelled out in the code, but maybe we ought to be talking to our assemblyman and senator and talk about getting some codes changed, because that is, you know, that is totally BS. If that's the case, the state has waived all that. Let's send them with that lost revenue. That's an imposed, you know, SB, whatever, 5, or what's the, what's the SB?
Unreimbursed.
Right, SB 90.
SB 90, yeah, the SB, that's
State
a,
mandates.
I mean, that's, no wonder we're having the issues that we're having. Okay, well, that explains a lot. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that's a we ought to frame that, hang it on the wall so we don't forget about it.
Frame what?
This page.
Well, I'm gonna provide one every month for the previous month.
Good. And I think we should frame those and we start collecting them.
Don't remind him everything.
Well, you know, I mean.
Well, some of that is also set by the board, I do believe.
Yeah.
Um,
You know, the issue is how do we put this thing on a paying basis? So that's like, you know, you get, I mean, that's,
And I hate to be the wet blanket, but we could raise those rates to $500 a day. And
They'd
the fact
still
is,
do the waiver.
sometimes they're just
Still do
blood
the
out of a turnip.
Even if we can waive it to $1 a day, instead of to zero, at least somebody's
great.
having to pay something. Because right now, what is the incentive for parents to help their children stay within the county and to change their behaviors when they can have the probation department parent their kids for free?
you know, a long time ago, my dad always told me, he said, if you wanna get somebody's,
$1.
if you wanna get somebody's attention, you embarrass them, you inconvenience them, or you hit them in the pocketbook. That's how you get their attention. And I would say, based on what we're saying right here, not only are we're the ones that are being embarrassed, okay? And the one who's being inconvenienced is not the kid or his family. And, you know, that was the issue. I mean, if we have to transport the kid to some facility out of county, and it inconveniences the family to go see him, well, you know, you ought to start dealing with your kid. And if you hit him in the pocketbook, heck, come and be a juvenile delinquent in Lassen County, we'll pay you. I mean, that's what you're doing. And that's why you have the problems you have. You need to rein that in. Jiminy Christmas. I can't believe that. It's not your fault, by the way. Thank you for all you do, but I gotta tell you,
I'm just
this
sitting
is.
here thinking, you know what, every time I come up here, I just don't know exactly what's gonna happen.
No,
I didn't do this.
Welcome to Maury's world.
You're my person.
Right?
You're my person. I wanna see these reports every month. This is awesome. Thank
We're
you.
gonna have them every month.
When I talk
Is this a good
to
format?
When I talk to Assemblyman Brian Dolly, I'm gonna be talking to him about Jennifer's page, we're gonna call it.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Is there anything
Look at you
You
started.
better run for cover.
I
No,
know, I'm getting ready to.
No, thank you.
Don't-
Appreciate it.
don't you ever quit. Keep that up. You're doing good.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry you have to, like that thing, don't shoot the messenger.
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Chairman,
Think
don't
I'll
be
bring
so
that sign next
apologetic.
time.
Yeah, not your fault. Yeah, and good luck with Brian trying to get that through the supermajority, you know, to make the people pay. Yeah, so if he gets that through, we'll vote for him for
Governor?
president.
President, okay, I'll tell him that you said that.
So, would anybody else from the public like to comment on this item? There was an information item. Any other comments from the board? Okay. If not, we'll move on to, let's move on to H4. Aaron?
Good afternoon, Board Chairman, board members. This item was kind of a joint between Health and Social Services and the Public Works Department. It fits in kind of the bigger global view of the one-stop projects concept out there for the county. We've been working on this one for a little while, getting the plans and the specs ready to go for this one. Up in Beaver, there is an existing one-stop facility up there. It's an older building of about 1,100 square feet. And so what this project consists of is remodeling that and adding an additional 2,200 square feet. Richard, please, just move that top package over. This can be a little bit of that's the new floor plan. The existing part is a smaller section. And that kind of consisted of a conference room, kind of an open space concept, and then there was basically a smaller office and then a larger office. And working with the different groups and departments that occupy space in there on their needs and so forth, this is what they came up with. Basically, we're adding on an additional 6 offices. There is a small, I guess you'd call it clinic type room, and Mel can jump in here anytime on this as I'm going along. Where if there's like a nurse to do stuff like that, that room has certain requirements. There's a reception area and then a waiting area, and that's all in there, and bathroom. The existing part, they kind of kept the conference room area there as far as that functionality. In those walls aren't there, anything like that. The input from the staff was they had an additional bathroom down there, and this is trying to make it kind of a multiple use facility. One of the reasons being is having bathrooms that the kind of the other end of the building would be locked off, but if there was some sort of community type use or meeting needed to occur, they could use the conference room and come in there and you still have bathrooms and not have to try to pass into the other security area. Within that bathroom, they also included a shower, and there's also kind of like a laundry area, wash and dryer area there as well. That I guess some of the clientele is kind of rough when they come in there sometimes, so they felt that might be something that they may or may not need before they sit down and work with us. So the crux of the problem we're at now is the monies they have is Mental Health Service Act, which they've spent some of the money down in Herlong and some of the Westwood. The large chunk of its remaining was actually that $495 noted in here. The intent was that would this project would bid in at that level and be able to be covered by that amount. As you can see from the bidding here, it's higher than kind of what we anticipated to come in on that. So I've outlined a few options here. Kind of what the window is working with the bid process is that on, basically there's a 60-day window being March 24th or so, we need to decide whether to accept the bids or reject them, or let the work with the apparent low bidder to extend out the negotiation process with him. So one is we just award a project. In doing so, we have a shortfall there of approximately $92,000 there. I think for the sake of argument, just say $100,000 shortfall on that. The other option is we could award it, and then after the agreement's in place, try to work with the contractor to try to delete some things that maybe aren't absolutely necessary there. Everybody looks at it, kind of says the office space, it's easy to cut off 2 offices. Well, actually, that's the cheapest part of building the project there. There are some things, we did sit down with the engineer for this, with Morsh and Mel's staff, and talk about some stuff. There are some things we can do to delete those. The problem is trying to do that after the contract's in place with the contractor gets kind of problematic. Contract change order things. He's willing to, work with us, but again, he bid a certain thing, and if he wants to stick to his guns, he can try to stick to his guns. This is what I'm building for you guys. Third option is you can reject it, and we can see if we can do some cost savings and do a little bit of a redesign on it. I mean, we get maybe closer to that 495. I don't know that we're ever, going to be able to get it in there and still have a facility that meets minimally the needs of Mel staff up there and everything for the health and social services. I think what part of what they were trying to, having a space up there, we talked that, if you needed to house 2 people in each office, you could do that. And that if maybe more people from the surrounding area up there embraced the one-stop concept, you would have a few more nonprofits possibly under that roof as well and stuff. As far as the concept of trying to bring everybody under one roof, I think it's a really good concept and everything. It definitely makes sense from the economy scale and trying to save money and stuff. So essentially, it's a shortfall, or you can just reject the bids and figure out, if you want to revisit the entire one-stop concept. If Mel has anything she wants to add to that, or questions on the board.
I have some comments.
I do too.
Sure.
What, does the board want to ask Pete questions or wait for Melody to?
I'll wait with Melanie.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
When we set out to do this, and, we're health and social services, we're not public works, we're not contractors, we're not builders, not a lot of experience there. And so we've been trying to get this off the ground for a while.
About 5 years.
About 5 years. It's taken a while to get this far, and I can't tell you how disappointed we are that we didn't even get in the ballpark on what it's gonna cost to get us something that really would meet our needs. I frankly, I think that trying to work with the contractor to negotiate a smaller building at a lower price is not going to be very feasible, because then I'm still at risk of change orders running over what little money I have. And then now, of course, we've got the issue in Hurlong. I understand there's a complaint coming forward from about the One Stop in Westwood. We already have multiple complaints about the One Stop in Beaver. In fact, we've laughed about this a little bit. I had for the last 8 months, I had 3 trailers parked in the parking lot over by the Public Health Department for emergency preparedness till we got the deal done on the storage. Well, now they're gone, and so now I'm thinking I need to buy some trailers for the one-stops. I'm gonna go into the trailer park business. I don't really want to do that, but I'm running out of options to be able to provide adequate space and that meets all the ADA requirements and everything. And I don't want to close the one-stops because of this. We made a commitment to those communities to provide those services, and I want to follow through on that commitment. But boy, it is getting harder and harder to meet those commitments with the buildings that we have.
Thanks. We'll begin with Supervisor Chairman.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think, this has been something the board has worked on, and I agree with Mel that, we made commitments, these are important, services that are reaching out there. And with our ACO funds or some maybe other appropriate line item that we have in the budget, if that's what it takes to close the gap so that we can get this project, because you're not gonna be able to solve those other ones that we have out there until we get one like this here solved. And I think, this is a good project, it's one that everybody pretty much bought into. Obviously, there's a lot of delays over time, and that, each time there's a delay,